welcome back to another video. Today we're gonna do Water 7. So we're gonna be talking about Water 7 from One Piece today. And oh my gosh, I was not ready for this arc. My emotions were not ready for this arc. I cried several times. If y'all have been following me on TikTok, on my TikTok, as I post while I go through One Piece, y'all would have seen me a sobbing mess over certain parts in this arc. And I was not okay. I am still not okay. This arc was pure pain. It was great, but it was so painful. Why was it so painful? It hurt me so much. And I think one of the reasons it hurts me so much is because my top 3 Straw Hats is Sanji, Luffy, and Usopp. Can y'all see why this arc hurt me? Before we get into any of that, let's go over Water 7, the actual review, and get into it as I try to discuss all of my feelings over this arc, because as painful as it was, this was a fantastic arc in One Piece. So Water 7 starts off with meeting Kokoro and Chimney and Yokozuna, the frog that throws itself in front of the Puffing Tom, which comes back around and actually has significance. It's not just some frog, one, doing a front stroke and then tossing itself in front of a sea train. It actually has a lot of significance to it. But we meet them and they're telling us about Water 7, where we could go to get the Going Merry repaired and to possibly find a carpenter or a shipwright. So our crew heads to Water 7 in search of Iceberg on Kokoro's recommendation. When we first get to Water 7, we figure out that the city is actually really nice to pirates. And they're giving our crew directions. They're like, oh no, you can't go through here, go around this back way. Oh, you can dock your ship over here. They're really cool with pirates as long as the pirates don't pick a fight, which we see happen in Galila, where these pirates are trying to pick a fight with these shipwrights, and these shipwrights are super cool, super awesome, and they beat up these pirates without any problem and say, you don't mess with shipwrights, like you don't mess with these guys over here. Really cool introduction to them. And as Nami, Luffy, and Usopp head out to, one, go check out the town, and then to exchange their gold for money, Robin and Chopper end up going off to explore on their own, and then Sanji ends up leaving the ship as well so he can go find supplies, leaving Zoro alone on the Going Merry, which is then attacked by the Franky family, which comes into play later on. And Zoro makes quick work of them, disposes them from the ship. But as Luffy and Nami and Usopp are exchanging gold, the appraiser tries to rip them off, and Nami isn't having any of that. I love the way she just sees through the appraiser off the bat and is like, listen, this guy sitting beside me, yeah, he's worth 100 million berries. First of all, that gold is worth more. If you lie to me again, we're gonna beat you up. Yes, Nami! Yes! And after they get the proper amount of money exchanged, it's 300 million berries, which they're so thrilled about because they think they can fix the Merry with it, that it will be plenty to fix the ship and have some left over, because Luffy is still dead set on getting a bronze statue for some reason. But they also don't trust Luffy with any of the money, as he's swinging it around and almost flings 100 million of it into the water, where Nami and Usopp dive after it, only for Luffy to stretch out his arm and bring it back. Obviously, they're fed up with Luffy at this point. They beat him up, and then they won't let him touch any of the money, which he gets highly offended over. We get this bit with Robin and Chopper as they're off exploring, and Robin points out a bookstore to Chopper, who is super thrilled to go inside, and then a man in a mask comes by and says, I'm from CP9, and just shakes Robin immediately as she starts sweating, and then she disappears. Back at Galila, the company, Kaku ends up approaching Luffy, who's just trying to walk over the gate and everything. And they tell him that they're looking for Iceberg. Kaku says, hey, he's not here right now. Let me go ahead and go appraise your ship. So he takes off. That is also when we see what Sanji's doing in town, and he ends up seeing Robin following someone. He tries to go after her, and when he turns the corner, she's gone. They just disappeared. And so he's getting very confused at what is going on, and he goes in search of Robin, who has disappeared. So there's a lot going on. There's so much going on in this arc, so I'm trying to like separate it and piece it together best I can. So bear with me as I'm doing that, as I'm going over this review. But we also get the introduction of Iceberg at the moment, where he's actually already at Galila, and they end up talking to him about the Mary, and he has all the information about his crew, that they have 7 members, their bounties, the amount of berries their bounties add up to. He knows everything. This is also when the Franky family attempts to steal 200 million berries the first time, and it stops by Polly and Lucci. So they get their money back at the first time, and Iceberg's like, you know what, let's go ahead and give you a tour of Galila while we wait for Kaku to get back with the appraisal. So they're going on a tour, and Usopp ends up getting taken by the Franky family, along with the 200 million that he is carrying, because they don't trust Luffy to carry it. And they don't even notice that Usopp is gone. And that is when Kaku gets back from the Going Merry, which is kind of funny because when he was on the Merry, Zoro looks at him, and Luffy made the same comparison. Zoro was half asleep, and he looks up, he's like, oh, that's Usopp. And then he's like, wait a second, who are you? Luffy does the same thing, and Usopp is standing right beside him when they're in front of Galila. And Luffy's like, oh, Usopp, is that you? And Usopp's like, I'm right here. It was a very good comedy bit, because there's not a whole lot of comedy in this arc. There are some good comedic bits, but this arc is definitely felt a lot heavier than the previous arcs. I enjoyed whatever bits of comedy I got, because when Kaku gets back, he tells them that the Going Merry can't be fixed. The coal underneath the ship has been so badly damaged that they don't even believe the Merry would be able to make it to the next island. And Luffy at first is so against this. He is so angry, and he's like, y'all don't know anything about this ship. You don't understand. Like, there's no way she can't be fixed. Luffy just straight out refuses to accept the idea that they could possibly lose the Going Merry, until something Iceberg says kind of makes him pause. And I think this is what originally makes Luffy think about the entire situation they're in, and kind of in a way the weight of what being a captain is. When Iceberg says, I'm amazed you can call yourself the ship's captain, and it gives Luffy pause and makes him stop, and he stops yelling, he stops refusing what they said. And Iceberg's like, well, this conversation's over. You think it over, and then you come back to us when you're ready to make a decision. I think Iceberg's words really meant a lot to Luffy, and you see the impact of those words as this arc continues forward in the decisions Luffy makes. But after Iceberg's conversation with Luffy, that's when they discover that the money is missing, that Usopp is missing, and they realize the Franky family took them. Luffy just barges straight off in search for Usopp, and Nami and him get separated. Nami ends up finding Usopp on the side of the road, beaten and bloodied. When Nami finds Usopp, and he is just in pieces, not even the fact that he was beat up, the fact that he lost the money, knowing that money was going to the Merry, that they were finally going to get the Merry fixed. And Nami, who just heard that the Merry can't be fixed, she sees Usopp's situation, and it's just not good on either side because she feels like this heavy weight on her shoulders because she knows the truth about the Mary, but she can't tell Usopp in this moment because of how he's feeling. And Usopp is so ashamed of losing, and he blames himself for being weak, and he says, I can't face the others. He's so ashamed that he doesn't want to face any of them. This part already was getting me in my feels. I was getting emotional when I was going through this part. And Nami, she just like, I can't move him. Nami knows she can't move Usopp at the moment, so she leaves to go get everyone else so that they can go get Usopp, take him to safety, and then they can go after the Franky family to get their money back. And this is when all of the others learn about the Mary because Sanji had found Chopper while they were out looking for Robin, and they ended up returning to the ship, and that is when they all learned about the Mary and what they had said about the Mary. And I love Sanji in this moment because the others are like, wait, no, like, we love the Mary. And Sanji's the first one who starts thinking, he's like, oh, I wonder how Usopp's gonna feel when he hears about this. Everyone knows how much the Mary means to Usopp because they got the Mary from Kaya, from Sierra Village, where Usopp was from. Not only that, but there's so many other things we've learned in this arc that has heightened this feeling of what the Mary means to Usopp. And Sanji voices is like, oh, I don't know how he's going to react to this. Which comes into play later on. While they're all looking for Usopp, Usopp actually gets up and he goes and faces the Franky family by himself because he wants to be able to get the money back himself because of that shame he's feeling, because he feels like he's so weak. And he faces off against the Franky family, demanding the money back. And he loses. And the way Franky and the others treat Usopp had me so heated. I was so mad I was crying. Like, I was crying tears of rage at that point. I just despised the Franky family and Franky himself so much in that moment. And that is when Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Chopper find Usopp's body. It's mangled, it's bloody, he's beaten unconscious outside of the Franky house. And the atmosphere between those four switches so fast. They get serious and they get angry. And Luffy says, we're gonna go demolish that ridiculous house. And they do. There is no words that have to be spoken. They go in and they do not leave room for discussion. Sanji says, it's not about the money anymore. Zoro says it's too late to talk, and Luffy comes in and says, prepare to have every single one of your bones broken. Yes, I was so happy in that moment. I was so happy and hyped because they got revenge for Usopp. Even if they didn't get the money back, they still got revenge for hurting the people who hurt Usopp. Then Usopp wakes up on the ship, and Luffy has made the decision to let go of the Mary. That they're gonna get a new ship. The Mary's resting place will be here. They need a new ship. Luffy tries to act very casual about it when he's telling Usopp of, oh yeah, I just decided we're gonna get another ship. And that actually backfires on him because that almost nonchalant attitude made Usopp feel like Luffy didn't even care. And they start this argument, and the argument starts getting heated, and they're starting to yell at each other, and that whole scene of the argument is so intense, and it's so full of emotions and expressions and just unsaid things. It hurt. It hurt to see our boys fighting like that. It finally gets to the point where Luffy is like on top of Usopp and they're screaming at each other, grappling. And Luffy's like, well, if you don't like my way of doing things, then you might as well just, and he was about to say, you might as well just leave the ship. But Sanji comes in and kicks the crap out of Luffy and sends him flying. He says, you idiot, what were you about to say? Cool down before you say things you don't mean. And Sanji is the one who comes in and basically forces Luffy to stop. Because they're both taking things too far. They're both doing things. But as Luffy's the captain, it's his responsibility to de-escalate things first. And since he wasn't, Sanji made him step away, essentially, and think about what he was doing, think about what he was saying. But at that point, the damage had already been done, and Usopp was like, go ahead and say it. I know what you really meant to say something like that, I know. Usopp's speech to Luffy at that moment, where he's saying like, oh, it's your dream to be the king of the pirates. I don't have an aspiration that big, and all I'm gonna do is slow you down. Might as well get rid of the people who are gonna keep you from reaching that dream. And then he decides that he's going to quit. He's leaving the crew. And of course, everyone's response is like, what are you talking about? Like, you can't leave. And then he challenges Luffy to a fight. In anything I would have imagined that One Piece was leading to, anything that I thought that this show was going towards and what would happen, I never imagined Luffy would be fighting one of his own crew members, and I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that it would be Usopp. The idea of any of our Straw Hats fighting amongst themselves, like not just like bickering or play fighting, like actually fighting seriously amongst themselves like this, pains me, because this is a family. This is a family unit, and to see family fighting, I don't like it. I hate this. I hated this so much. This whole sequence of events destroyed my heart. And Usopp challenging Luffy to a fight, and there's so many layers to this, so many, because Usopp is such a complex and complicated character, because he feels so weak, and he feels like he is lesser than all of the other Straw Hats, that he is so far behind them, he can't catch up to them, he's the one that's going to hold them back. And because he personally kind of identifies with the Mary, he's like, well, if they're going to abandon the Mary when it's no more use of them, how much longer until I'm no more use of them and they abandon me? And knowing all of that, that's going inside of his mind, but he still has the courage and the gall to challenge Luffy, the strongest member of their crew, and he challenges him knowing he can't defeat Luffy. I know Usopp knew. I know Usopp knew that he could not beat Luffy. Luffy knew that Usopp couldn't beat him. Everyone knew Usopp couldn't beat Luffy. But he still challenged Luffy because that was what he believed in. He had such a strong belief in taking the Mary and keeping the Mary going that it made him desire a fight. And while I think that Usopp knew he couldn't beat Luffy, Usopp knew he could put up a fight. Usopp knew he could give Luffy a run for his money and make the fight count. He could make Luffy sweat, he could make Luffy worry, and he could trip Luffy up. Because Usopp is so smart, and his battle tactics are so unlike anything else, and it's very easy to catch an opponent off guard with all of his attacks. And that's what Usopp's strength is. He's not a weak character. He's actually a really strong character because he's a normal guy. He is a normal guy amidst a crew of superpowered people, pretty much. Like Sanji's strength is unreal. Luffy's strength is unreal. Zoro's strength is unreal. Nami is the only one kind of on the same wavelength as Usopp. But in his mind, he's the weakest link, and he's just a normal guy. But for him to not have all those ridiculous powers, and for him to still put up such a fight, shows just how strong Usopp is. Gosh, but Luffy agrees to the fight. He agrees to the fight for the Mary, and they fight. That fight was devastating. Yes, Usopp put up a great fight. He did so well against Luffy. He had Luffy tripping over his own feet, unable to keep up with his attacks. He was tricky. He was using the dials to his advantage and using the ground around him, using his brain to think of ways to create advantages for himself. But in the end, it still wasn't enough, and he still lost. And that scene where Luffy is walking back to the ship, and of course you have all these flashbacks of everything that they've been through together, the journeys they get, like getting the Mary and like the adventures they've been on, and you have Luffy walking away saying, wow, this is really tough. And Zoro says, this is what it means to be a captain. You can't waver. If you waver, who else can we trust? Which is a great thing for Zoro to say to keep Luffy from falling apart. That scene where you see Luffy crying and then it pans to Usopp and he is crying. This is such a complicated scene. It's so complex, and it's not just like one-sided, because you have Luffy's side of things and he's trying to be a good captain and he's trying to take care of his crew and he was trying to do it the best way he knew how, and it wasn't working and he didn't know what else to do, but he couldn't back down from Usopp's fight because he knows how much it means to Usopp, so he couldn't back down from Usopp's challenge. And on the other side, with everything that Usopp is feeling, like, I hated that this happened. I absolutely hated that this happened. But at the same time, I'm glad it did. Not because I wanted Usopp to leave. I never wanted a fight to happen. But I think the character growth that this arc has given Usopp and that it's given Luffy has been substantial. The awareness that Usopp has, but also struggling as he's working through his feelings and his emotions and his attachments to the Mary, while also still being attached to the crew that he willingly left, but he still doesn't want to abandon them, is so complex to see as the arc goes on. And then you see Luffy's growth as he is starting to take being a captain more seriously, and the weight of what a captain is starts to fall on his shoulders, and he's thinking about it more. He's more concerned than ever with the remnants of his crew because he doesn't want anything else to fall apart, which I think is why he's so adamant later on in this arc that Robin couldn't have possibly betrayed them. It's not just like, yes, Luffy has a lot of faith and he has a lot of trust in Robin, but it's not just that. Coming off the result of Usopp and his falling out, I think in Luffy's mind, he can't possibly imagine having that happen again, especially so soon. So Luffy, he's like, nope, there in his mind, it's like a denial. It's like he can't even wrap his head around it because he's denying it because he can't think of it happening again. This fight between Usopp and Luffy, it doesn't get resolved in this arc. And it pains me so much. But I'm hoping it gets resolved in the next arc. I need Usopp back on our crew officially. Like, I need him back. So I spent a lot of time talking about the fight and how I felt about that because that was one of the biggest moments of this arc for me. And I couldn't just skip over it. I couldn't just summarize it. There's so much to talk about with that fight. After the fight ends, that next day is kind of like the aftermath of it all happening, and they figure out that Iceberg has been attacked. And as they're trying to figure out who's done it, Iceberg says it was Nico Robin. And that is when Luffy's trust in Robin comes into play. And he's like, there's no way Robin would do this. There's no way she would betray us. There's no way she would hurt you. Nothing. And he is adamant about believing in Robin. And we also have like the side points of Franky seeing that his house was demolished and he wants revenge on Luffy, so he's going to seek Luffy out. And you also have Aqua Laguna coming, the most catastrophic storm of the year. They're all having to prepare for this massive storm that if it hits, you can't leave the island, which presents a huge problem if they're trying to take Robin off of the island. And I love this little moment when they know Aqua Laguna is coming And Chopper and Sanji are still so worried about Usopp. They go to warn him indirectly because they know if they just go up to him and say it, he won't listen. So they go and indirectly start shouting about like how the storm's coming and everything just to warn Usopp. Then you get a small fight between Franky and Luffy where we figure out that Franky is actually a cyborg. Most of his body is something that he's messed with himself. He's a very hard opponent to beat. But they end up getting distracted from their fight because of the Galley Lawmen trying to attack Luffy since they think he attacked Iceberg. It's a whole mess. This whole arc was so messy. So while Luffy and Nami are dealing with all of this, Sanji and Chopper end up actually finding Robin, and Robin says that she's gonna be leaving the Straw Hats because she has a darkness in her heart that will end up hurting them if she stays. And she basically tells them, you won't see me anymore. Bye. Chopper takes this the hardest because one, Chopper is so attached to all of them because of everything that they've done for him, and he took Usopp's departure very hard, but he already had this really special bond with Robin. Like, they were always together. Robin always seemed to be looking out for him and humoring him. She was always talking to him. So they have this really special bond, and for Chopper to be there when Robin says, you won't see me anymore, and for him to try to call out to her and tell her to come back. It was so sad to see Chopper crying about Robin's departure like that. That hurt me too, because they have such a special, sweet bond together. And then Sanji ends up telling Chopper to go tell the others what Robin says, and he stays behind to do his own thing. And I really like this because Sanji's such a smart character, and he's really, really suave with things, especially in situations like this. He plays a very similar role to what he did in Alabasta, where he goes unseen pretty much by all of the bad guys of the arc until the very end. And he's very tactical, he's very smart about it, and it's exactly what he does here. He's like, hey, you know what? I have things I need to handle here, Chopper. You go ahead and go back to the others. So Chopper goes and tells them what Robin said, and they all have this plan to save Robin because Luffy, again, can't accept that Robin would want to leave and is going to do anything to stop her and save her because they feel she is being coerced by this man in a mask, which she is. That's also when Franky ends up kidnapping Usopp and the Going Merry before Aqua Laguna hits. So this is where CP9 ends up attacking at night, and they're all trying to figure out like what CP9's plan is, and they try to go attack themselves because Luffy disappears. So Nami and Zoro and Chopper automatically assume, oh well, Luffy's already gone in there and he's clearing out a way for us, we gotta go help. Luffy's stuck in a wall. So Luffy got stuck in a wall, and so Zoro, Nami, and Chopper end up having to fight their own way through all of the Galley Lawmen, which is not fun, but Nami's like, hey, these are innocent people, we can't kill them. Zoro's using the back of his sword, so it's no big deal. This is also when we get the reveal of CP9's intentions is to get the blueprints to Pluton, that ancient weapon we heard about all the way back in Alabasta that Robin read on the poneglyph. But that's not it. Poneglyphs are illegal to search for and read because of all the like hidden information they have on them about the weapons and the ancient weapons. I didn't know it was illegal. I don't know why, but that makes me so much more interested in the poneglyphs. And Robin, you know, they're targeting Robin because she's the one who can read these poneglyphs, so she's a threat to them, that she can bring these ancient weapons back into the world. But she doesn't want to. She wants that information because she's still searching for the real poneglyph, that true history, which is real. I know it's real. I know in my gut it's real. It has to be. But the whole thing is they're like, well, it doesn't matter if that's not your intention. You have the knowledge, therefore you're a threat and must be eliminated. The fact that the poneglyphs, like searching and reading the poneglyphs is illegal, blew my mind. Because that puts more emphasis on my theory about what the poneglyphs lead to, like regarding all of the weapons and how dangerous they actually are. And CP9 is after the blueprints of Pluton. So if the blueprints of Pluton exist, does that mean if the blueprints are there, that means Pluton must have already existed, right? So Pluton was already in existence and someone made the blueprints for it so it could exist again. And if the world government gets their hands on that, they could destroy the entire pirate era like that. And we don't want that personally for our crew. But before we can get any other information on the poneglyphs, we get this huge plot twist betrayal that I was not expecting. Took me completely by surprise. CP9 is the foreman and the bar owner. Lucci, Kaku, Khalifa, and Bluno. They're the members of the CP9. That betrayal, the look of shock on Iceberg's face, on Polly's face when they realized that the people that had been closest to them for the past 7 or so years had been the ones betraying them this entire time. But that wasn't the only twist we got. We got the reveal that the blueprints are with Cutty Flam, who is aka Franky. I still did not like Franky at this point, so I was like, are you kidding me? This man is going to be coming back. He's important. I did not like Franky. I was so mad at Franky for like 90% of this arc. I just did not like him. I thought he was weird and loud and obnoxious, and I thought it was just awkward that he would just dance half naked. He just has a Speedo on. That was all. That was weird. I didn't like it. And I didn't like him. And then when I realized that he's Cutty Flam, so he has the blueprints to Pluton, I was like, well, crap, he's going to become important, and that means we're going to get a backstory on him, which we did. I will say, though, Franky's backstory won me over on him. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. It was so sad how Tom was charged, you know, for building the King of the Pirates ship, even though he's the one who just built the ship. He didn't have anything to do with what Goldie Roger did with it, but they still charged him for it. And seeing Franky grow up with Iceberg and Tom and Kokoro and Yokozuna, which is the whole reason why Yokozuna throws himself in front of the train. It was so sad at the end to see that the ships that he had made, and he felt that guilt because he didn't listen to Iceberg and he just left the ships out there. And Iceberg kept telling him over and over again that, you know, people could use them for the wrong reasons. And Franky just didn't believe him. And at the end, to see his own ships, his own creations being used to hurt and kill Tom was just heartbreaking. I felt so bad for Franky, and the guilt he felt, that anger he had to fight back and then throw himself in front of the train to attempt to stop it from getting to Enies Lobby so Tom wouldn't be executed. That was a really sad backstory, and I did grow to appreciate Franky's character a lot after that. But what started to truly win me over on Franky's character was the conversations he was having with Usopp. There were 2 things. First, or there were 3 things actually. First was his past. Second, the conversations he had with Usopp. When he took Usopp and Usopp ended up telling him the story of how he's no longer part of the Straw Hats. Franky gives it to Usopp straight that, you know, the Mary can't be fixed. It would be better just to go ahead and take it all apart. And of course, Usopp is just denying this until Franky pushes him underwater so Usopp himself can see the very bottom of the ship. Then the conversation Usopp has about the Going Mary and how the Mary, like, itself was, like, incarnated in, like, this person, like, this spirit. And the Mary was talking to Usopp. That's what we saw. That's what Usopp saw when he was on Skypiea. That's who he saw through the mist. And the Mary talked to him. And for the Mary to say, hey, it's okay. I've carried you this far. Don't worry. I will carry you a little bit further. That made me cry again because that just, it added extra heaviness to why Usopp didn't want to part with this ship. This ship was incarnated into his spirit that helped put it back together the best it could because of the love that Usopp and the others had for this ship. And because of the love they poured into it over and over and over again. Usopp's admittance to knowing that the Mary couldn't sail, to knowing that she couldn't go any further, but still not wanting to abandon her. His feelings are just, they're so complex and so understandable. Because he doesn't want to abandon Mary because of all the attachments he has, even though he knows the Mary can't go on any longer. Oh, that moment was so good. It was so good, and it wrapped a lot of loose ends up about, you know, Usopp's feelings towards the Mary, about his emotions, and why he was so adamant about not letting the Mary go. But that gets ruined by CP9 coming in and taking them hostage because they know Franky has the blueprints to Pluton. Haku just throws the Mary off into the ocean during Aqua Laguna. I'm very bitter about that. That better not be the end of the Mary. That better not be how the Mary goes out. I will be so angry if that's the case. After the reveal of Lucci and the others being government agents, they're CP9, then everything just kind of falls apart. Luffy tries to fight against Lucci and loses. Like, all of them, like him and Zoro, they both lose so quickly. The difference in ability and difference in power is so apparent that it scares me of how they're going to be able to beat them in Enies Lobby. And Luffy is sitting there and he's, you know, begging Robin. He's trying to speak to her, and Robin just says, "You'll never see me again. My wish can't come true as long as I'm with you." And leaves just like that, without any further explanation. And CP9 ends up blowing up the building after Zoro and Luffy get thrown. And Chopper saves Nami by pushing her out of the way, and he ends up, even though he is beaten and bloodied after he got stuck under rubble, he is able to save Polly and Iceberg and get them out. And I love Chopper so much because even after that, he's already saved these people, and he gets out, and he's beaten up really badly himself, but he sees Nami, he's like, I need to treat her. And he's not even thinking about himself. That's when Iceberg reveals to Nami about Robin's true intentions, that she's made a deal with CP9 not to use the Buster Call in exchange for her coming quietly, and they spare the other Straw Hats. So she's basically sacrificing herself for the others. She's not betraying them, she's not abandoning them, she's not even burning them, like burning the bridges like Aokiji said. She is sacrificing herself to save them and to keep them alive. And once Nami figures out that Robin hasn't betrayed them, she is so relieved. She falls to the ground and is just like, oh, thank goodness, now we can go. Now we can go fight because we know it's not in vain. We have a purpose to fight them now. So they're trying to save Zoro and Luffy from wherever they were thrown, and Nami's off to the sea train. She doesn't make it on time, but Sanji's already there and he sees everything. I love the moment where he's behind the pillar and he lights a cigarette and he says, bingo. Because he saw Robin get on the train, he saw Usopp and Franky being taken onto the train, and he decides to infiltrate it by himself. He thought ahead so much because he knew Aqua Laguna was coming, that there wouldn't be a way out of the island should it come, and he was waiting there to see if Robin would show up, and she did. And so he gets on the train and leaves a message. His message to Nami was so funny and so cute. I loved it. But he thought ahead to leave one message behind, but also a communications device behind so that they could get in contact later on when he was able to. Sanji's so smart. He's such a smart character. I love these moments with him. So Luffy and Zoro end up getting saved. Luffy was stuck in a wall again, and Zoro was upside down in a chimney, so that was fun. They end up following behind on Rocket Man, this other version of the Puffing Tom that wasn't completed because it can't control its speed. So it just goes and goes and goes. But Iceberg and Kokoro ended up helping them out, and they're on their way to try to catch up with the Puffing Tom. Sanji's already inside, and he was thinking about how he was going to infiltrate until he gets caught when someone opens up the back door, and he's just sitting there. He has this adorable little smile, and then he just kicks the crap out of this guy and sends him flying into the ocean. Like, that guy's dead. He just casually kills somebody with a smile on his face. It's fine. And Sanji goes through all the trains, and he's taking the trains out one by one. He's cleaning up this place like it is nothing. He's not having any sort of hard time with it. He finds Usopp and Franky, and he frees both of them. When Usopp tells Sanji that was Franky, Sanji kicks the crap out of Franky because he's still so pissed about what Franky did to Usopp. I really enjoyed that moment. It was just like, it was sweet vindication. I was like, ah yes, okay, that's what I needed. I needed to see that. Now I'm okay. And I love that even as Sanji and Usopp still try to like pretend that they're not like friends, that they don't know each other, they still very much like care about each other, and it's very obvious that Sanji and Usopp are still friends despite that they're trying not to act like it. So those three end up teaming up to try to go find Robin. They get in touch with Luffy as they're coming on the train behind them. And this is where Luffy tells Sanji, like, don't hold back. He tells them the situation with Robin, what Robin is planning on doing. Luffy's just like, you don't have to hold back. And Sanji's like, I wouldn't be able to. I love that. And when they decide to go after Robin, it was really cool to me that Franky decided to help them, that he was all of a sudden kind of on our side once he heard all the stories and what was going on, and he wanted to help Robin too. Usopp says, I'm not part of y'all, I don't owe y'all anything, I can't help y'all. Which is partly due to his guilt, this guilt he has over, you know, the whole situation, the whole fight, the falling out. But he still cares so much. But he can't personally do it himself at this moment because he still has all that shame and he doesn't want to face everybody as Usopp. So he says he's leaving, but then comes back 2 minutes later with a mask on and calls himself Sogeking from the Land of Snipers. I love Usopp so much. He's such a fun character. I love it so much. He tries so hard to be someone else and tries to be the Sogeking character. He's like, oh yes, I am Usopp's best friend. I am here to help you. He has asked me to help. And Sanji and Franky are both like, that's Usopp. Sanji's like, well, think about what he's feeling at the moment. Like, we'll just let him be. And that's exactly what they do. They continue on as normal and know that it's Usopp. They just don't say anything about it. And Sanji actually gets a really cool fight against Wanze, this disgusting chef who makes noodles out of his nose. Ugh, that was nasty. That's nasty. Absolutely disgusting. And Sanji, at first, he's, you know, fighting as he always would, and he's doing good, but because of the way Wanze is fighting, he needs to use more than just his legs, and Sanji finds an exception for his own rule of only using his legs, and he's like, hey, I'm in a kitchen, I'm dealing with food, so he picks up and he starts twirling these knives, so he's like, I guess I can use my knives to cut up this food. I love Sanji. That fight with Wanze was so cool because we really got to see how strong he is. Like he's not just a one-trick pony. He can fight with his hands should he choose to. He just doesn't because of his own personal rule as a chef. And it was so cool. And of course he won. Usopp ends up being the one to find Robin, and she of course recognizes him immediately too, but he still pretends to be Sogeking. He ends up fighting to save her as well. As they're all trying to attack, CP9's upon them. They know that they're trying to get Robin. Usopp is the one to throw a smoke bomb. He grabs Robin and he starts running. And what Usopp says to Robin there at the end, where he says, you should know you cannot leave the crew without the captain's permission, without the captain's approval. Guys, Usopp's character just was so great in this arc. Oh, and like these words to her, it's just like, so like, and because Usopp says that, so he's like, so you have to wait for Luffy. You have to wait for Luffy to get here, because he's coming. He is coming for you. Oh, it was so amazing. And what won me over with Franky, like the third thing that I mentioned, it's like a two-parter, was when he tried to sacrifice himself so that Sanji and Usopp could get Robin and run. That was an incredibly selfless thing for Franky to do. He had no reason to do it because the CP9 is after him as well and is kind of guaranteeing his fate of being captured and killed. But he did it anyways because he wanted to see Robin leave, because he knew the story from what he'd heard and knew what was happening wasn't right. I really loved that moment from Franky. But it doesn't work because Blue Note has this weird devil fruit power where he can open these doors through anywhere because like it's air, like an air pocket door. And he ends up getting Robin anyways, and he hurts Sanji, he hurts Luffy to the point where Robin ends up saying like, no, like don't hurt them, I'm gonna come with you, I surrender. Blue Note kind of threatens the Buster Call and reveals a little bit more about Robin's past, of how she was the only one when she was a child to survive a Buster Call, because they know how much it scares her, how much that experience has scarred her. They're using it against her in order to get her to comply, which is horrible, to use someone's PTSD against them. That is just terrible. Despite all that, Robin still goes with them, and Sanji and Usopp can't get them, and they got Franky and they got Robin. And they're headed to Enies Lobby. And as they're going to Enies Lobby, and the second part of the third thing that completely won me over on Franky was his words of reassurance to Robin. What he says to Robin after he listens to her talking about how she just would hurt them. Her existence is a sin, and that she hurts everyone that she's around. And when he listens to that and he knows the story and he's thinking about it, and he says, no, your existence isn't a sin. The things that these people are doing to you is wrong. It's these people that are hurting those around you. You're not hurting them. They are. And when he says, no, your existence isn't a sin, and we see that look on Robin's face after he says that, and oh my goodness, that won me over on Franky. Even after what he's done, the way he came around in this arc for me, I fully appreciate Franky now as a character. I just love what he said to Robin, because he's probably the first person who has said those words specifically to Robin before. Nobody has probably ever said that to her. And to hear it from someone who is also a target like she is, who also possesses this knowledge that they're being tracked and hunted for, probably meant a lot. It ends with, Sanji and Usopp getting together with everybody on the train, and they're headed to Enies Lobby, and they're trying to come up with a plan of how they're gonna get Robin and Franky back. This arc was insane. The plot was incredible from start to finish, and it leads into Enies Lobby perfectly. I am currently in Enies Lobby. I am not done with it, but I want to see what happens next. I loved the plot. I loved the character moments, and wow, this arc was painful. This arc was just pain to me, because I love Usopp. I have loved Usopp since the beginning of One Piece. And I love Luffy. To see these two go at it this arc hurt me in ways I didn't know I was gonna hurt. I knew this show was emotional because I've been emotional with this show since pretty much the East Blue arc. I've cried several times. I did not expect to be full on sobbing with no reprieve in this arc. I was a complete mess. This was not fun for me, for my emotions. I did not fare well. There's just the character moments. Usopp has so many, like from the way he stands up to the Franky family, that shows one how courageous he is, because we've seen him run from so many little things. We've seen him try to make excuses to get out of things, but when it comes down to it, he's always there. And that's happened in every other arc. When it comes down to it, he's always there to fight, no matter how scared he is, no matter how weak he thinks he is, he's always there with the others. So when he shows up at the Franky house and he's fighting, even though he loses, I have nothing but respect for him. And then, of course, that whole argument and the fight with Luffy, we've already talked about that, but oh my goodness. That determination and the love Usopp has for the Mary is just incredible. And with the realization that we get, knowing that he knew the Mary was at the end of her life pretty much, but he still didn't want to let her go because he saw the incarnation of the Mary and spoke and listened to the Mary speak to him. Usopp's just such a complicated character, and I really, really loved him in this arc. I loved getting to see the inner workings of his mind and how he sees himself as so weak and so much lesser than the others, yet he's so strong in his own right and holds his ground against the strongest member of our crew. Such a great thing to see. And Luffy in this arc was just amazing. His anger and his refusal, and then taking Iceberg's words to heart about what it means to be a captain. He starts acting more like a captain in this arc. I'm not saying like he never acted like a captain before, but he really starts to take on this role of a captain and starts putting more of that weight on his shoulder, and the decisions and the choices that they make and how he approaches his crew. And then his fear and refusal of Robin's betrayal because he doesn't want to lose anybody else. I love Luffy. I love Luffy so much. Zoro didn't really shine in this arc for me. He had, of course, that line to Luffy about what it means to be a captain, but he didn't really do much in this arc for me, I'll be honest. Chopper had a couple good moments. Nami had a couple good moments. I think the top shiners are, of course, Usopp, Luffy, and Robin, because wow, we get so much on Robin in this arc, and we get more tidbits of her past kind of hinted and revealed to us, though we haven't gotten the full thing. We just know she was the only survivor of a Buster Call, which kind of makes sense with what Aokiji said before on Long Ring Long Land, that she had gotten away from him once and he doesn't intend to let it happen again. That Buster Call when she was a child was probably when she got away from him. That's just what I'm assuming. I'm not sure. I'm not completely sure, but that's kind of like where my brain is going with it. And her love for the Straw Hats. Robin doesn't outwardly express a lot of emotions and a lot of what she's feeling, but her decision to sacrifice herself for the Straw Hats' safety, to keep them safe, just shows how much she loves her newfound family that she joined of her own accord, that she has truly become one of them. She has become part of this little family unit, and she would rather watch herself burn and die than have to sit back and watch them go. And I love that. I love the selflessness we see from Robin, because it really shows where her heart is. It really shows where she stands when it comes to the Straw Hats. And of course, Sanji had some great moments. I love the way Sanji works in arcs like this. Like, he did the same thing in Alabasta with Crocodile, how he was Mr. Prince back there, and he kind of worked behind the scenes to set things up. He didn't have a persona this time, but he still worked behind the scenes, and he set things up so that he could be there on that train when he was needed, when nobody else was going to be able to get there. And he was able to fight and take out a lot of the train so that they didn't have to worry about excess enemies when they get to Enies Lobby. And because he was there fighting for Robin, he got more information about Robin's past, and he made an alliance with Franky. Franky is a newer character. I appreciate him, but I'm not exactly sure how to voice my thoughts on him quite yet. He is fascinating, and I do like him at the end of Water 7. I just want to see where his character goes from here. So with that being said, that's kind of my review of Water 7. I talked a lot about Usopp and Luffy in this one. I know I did. That had the most impact on me in this arc was them specifically and the results of their fight, their actions, and how it impacted the rest of the arc. Because that did really have a huge impact on how this arc went and the direction this arc went in. But this arc was beautiful. The plot was amazing. The world building we got was fantastic. Water 7 was beautiful. And the more tidbits of history we got about the poneglyphs, like about it being illegal to get them and all of that was amazing. I can't wait. Because I have a feeling in Enies Lobby we're finally going to get Robin's past, because that's what this is all leading up to. I cannot wait to see what we get with Robin in the next arc. I'm very, very much looking forward to it. But thank y'all so much for watching this review. Let me know what your thoughts on Water 7 below, if I missed any like big talking points, because I know I've been talking about Usopp and Luffy on this one. I can't not think of that as like the biggest part of Water 7. I just can't. So let me know what your thoughts on Water 7 are below. I am anxious but excited to get into Enies Lobby and see where that goes. So be on the lookout for more videos I will have coming soon, and hopefully I will finish Enies Lobby up in the next week or so that I can get that next review going. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one, scholars. Bye!